All right, welcome to week two. This week we are jumping into the briar patch of definition. Is it possible to craft an objective definition of political terrorism that differentiates terrorism from other forms of politically motivated violence and does so in an objective way? Uh, this is an important question to get right because if we don't get it right, we social scientists end up simply echoing the ideological preferences of our country's political and economic elites rather than doing what we should be doing, which is studying terrorism from an impartial perspective in a way that helps governments identify sound policies for addressing the various discontents that give rise to political instability and violence and or finding a way to resolve the violence by other means. Um, I've already mentioned one of the biggest challenges surrounding identifying an objective definition of terrorism. The syllogism, one person's terrorist is another person's freedom fighter, captures the ideologically charged nature of defining terrorism. There are no non-controversial approaches to defining political terrorism. And one that one of the exercises we're going to engage in this week is one of your first writing assignments, which involves an analysis of a really important article by Jeremy Waldron, who I'll talk about in a minute. The article analyzes the distinction between terrorism and other forms of coercion, which is an important first step in the process towards arriving at what we're talking about. So the one thing you need to find out about reading this chapter is that there are a lot of different kinds of terrorism. There's one important initial dividing line, and that is between dissident terrorism, intended to somehow alter or overthrow a political status quo, and establishment terrorism, which is designed to defend and reinforce an existing status quo. The unifying theme of terrorism across the ideological spectrum is that all terrorists are extremists of some stripe. But what does it mean to say that a person is an extremist? What are the identifying features of political extremism? How do people go about becoming extremists? What are the pathways to extremism, the pathways to radicalization that we can identify and hopefully close? These are really important questions to consider because segments of our population are traveling down pathways to extremism, and we need to think about what we're going to do with our domestic extremism problem, because that is a problem we clearly have. Okay, so we have 3 assignments due this week. Every week you will have your responsibilities for the weekly forum, and you will have a quiz. Count on those graded assignments every week. In addition, this week we have our first short writing assignment, which, as I said, is based on an article by Jeremy Waldron, who is a legal and political philosopher from New Zealand who holds teaching positions at Oxford University and New York City School of Law, and is one of the preeminent legal and political philosophers currently alive. I advised you to start reading the article last week, and hopefully you did that because you're going to need to think and read this article very carefully. It takes you very deeply into an important issue that we have to address if we're going to be able to say that we can make a distinction between terrorism and other forms of coercion. And I'll have more instructions both on the article, which is in the course resources section for for week 2, and then it's also the instructions are on the Dropbox for week 2 as well. So if you have any questions about the assignment, please let me know, and I'll be happy to try and clear it up. Let's have a great week.